All right, beating to dead a dead horse and beating a dead horse even more. I am here with an old friend of mine that I've repeatedly had discussions with this on, and this I forgot to silence my own.
I'm sorry, that's just awesome.
Okay, so anyway, yeah, beating a dead horse again with a person that I've had plenty of discussions with it on. S-Man speaks on abortion. Say hi, S-Man.
Hi, S-Man. I am such a smartass.
Mhm. Anyway, so the reason why this whole conversation got up, if anybody is wondering, the whole reason why this conversation got brought up is because it might have been a few months ago now. Um, S-Man had posted some tweets saying 4 letters that scare people, fuck the two-party system, and I was all like, try harder, and he said, I ain't anti-abortion, and I said, bullshit on that, and then he was all like, do you want to have a discussion sometime on that? I mean, we've been kind of holding off this discussion for quite a while. I mean, my hiatus slash job or business trip, and then just many put offs and whatnot. So
Yeah.
you know
Um,
what I've been noticing that I say whatnot a lot nowadays instead of all in all.
I think that's all right. But to give the story a little more context as well is so a few months ago, I think at least two to possibly three or four or even longer than that. It's been a while. So I had posted an image on my Twitter. It was the meme that people have made where hard to swallow pills, and then in the person's hand is a bunch of pills, and it said abortion isn't murder. Aircraft Sparky and I were fighting about that. Well, I wouldn't say fighting, but it was a heated argument on Twitter that went on for I don't know how many hours or even a day or two. I don't even remember the majority of the conversation because it happened a long time ago, and the guy had his Twitter suspended. I'm not surprised in all honesty, but it's a shame that we can't look over the context of the conversation. And
Yeah, the guy can
DarkCon
be
and I, I'm sorry, repeat that.
a bit of a bit edgy, can't he?
Yeah, sometimes he can be a total colossal dickhead. But yeah, basically,
Yeah, and he's a
Dark
douchebag.
DarkCon, DarkCon is of the belief that I am anti-abortion. Basically, what happened was after I considered leaving politics off my channel, we had a heart to heart and hangout call, and he brings up to me. He says that my position on abortion is rather confusing as hell, stating a lot of basically going over the points of contention. And I guess a reason for this discussion is to clear up some of the misconceptions and maybe mistranslations and miscommunications in the
Mm-hmm.
whole topic itself. And he made a video a few days ago called S-Man Speaks is Anti-Abortion. And I have made a full video response to it, which I will post most likely after the debate. I already posted a new video, but that's just my one-time shill
Uh,
opportunity here. Anyway,
I've just been notified right there of your recent upload.
yeah. So, uh, I mean, okay. So
All
that's
right,
basically what has happened thus far.
so now we're caught up on the timeline here. So explain again your abortion beliefs, like when you would like it legally capped yourself, and so on and so forth.
Okay. So the topic itself, just to give a little background on my position, is I've never been pro life. I've never really held the view that life begins at conception. Generally, in my days of having opinions on abortion, only one time did I ever consider going pro life, and that was well before I met DarkCon. And my position was that abortion is not murder, or it was generally not a big deal. It's not a bad thing. The issue was settled in 1973. As I got more researched into how abortions are performed and the nuances of the topic itself, and seriously considering both sides, I started to become of the belief that abortion is a necessary evil. I don't personally like it. However, I understand that abortion itself is a gruesome process, but at the same time, I don't believe I have the right to tell anybody what they can and cannot do with their body. A woman having an abortion does not affect me in any way, shape, or form. And because of that, I don't feel like I have the right to tell her what, the person who's going to potentially bear a child, how to carry out the pregnancy and whether or not she can or cannot carry out the pregnancy. And as I got more researched into the ethics of abortion and how the bodies are developed, we essentially, I started to think, okay, some states do not have a time cap on abortion, if I remember correctly. There are certain states where, legally speaking, there's no actual cap on abortion. Some states are rather strict. My state is between 22 and 24 weeks. And I'm thinking, okay, going by the pro-lifer logic or anti-abortionist logic, if brainwaves can be detected at 9 or 10 weeks, and the problem is that various anti-abortionists and even pro-choicers oftentimes say it starts at a certain number of weeks, and it's like, okay, so if we go just before that time restriction, and let's go with, I guess, 9 weeks or 10 weeks in this example here. If you could find out within 2 to 4 weeks you're pregnant, that's plenty of time to say, okay, I am now about to bring a future life into the world. Do I keep it or do I not? And when I said cap abortion at 10 weeks, that is not me saying, you cannot have an abortion, period. It's me saying, okay, you're pregnant, and 2.5 months, which that's how long 10 weeks is for the record, 2.5 months, you should be able to come up to some type of decision within that time period. If not, you made the choice for yourself. And this is, again, going by the pro-lifer standard. If it's at 10, if it could be detected at 10 weeks, all right, then cap the brain. If brainwaves can be detected within 10 weeks, cap it at 10 weeks then. That's more than enough time to decide. I think that if it takes you like several months to decide, that's way too long. And I've always stated that I am against late-term abortions. I've always thought that they were, in effect, gruesome. And Ben Shapiro, despite my disapproval of him, I do believe that he was correct to condemn that doctor in Pennsylvania who was aborting fetuses or whatever semantics you want to go over, 24, 25, 26 weeks in, I thought was ridiculous. And I thought that wasn't right. And if you want to call me anti-abortion for that, if that is what anti-abortionism actually is, allowing the woman to choose, but saying, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do this over 2.5 months after the fact. Then, okay, I guess I'm anti-abortion, although I'm the most reluctant out there, and I would support and defend Roe v. Wade and whatnot. And that's basically what it is.
So my question is, are you saying that you definitely do want to cap it at 10 weeks? I mean, is that what you fully believe in, that we should cap it for 10 weeks, at 10 weeks? Or is that just your area of compromise to anti-abortionists / pro-lifers?
That's an interesting question, and I'm going to try and give a concise answer. That would be partially a compromise with the anti-abortionists. However, in the context of the law and the legal position, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change where it stands right now legally. I don't. I mean, I would prefer all the states to have one consistent answer. Where it's not where so some states don't have a very short cap and other states have no cap, and I would prefer it to be consistent. But I think leaving it as it is right now is really the only choice we got. And I also, like I said earlier, this is legally a settled issue.
Well, that's a little bit of an appeal to law, and it's no offense, it seems kind of fallacious. In the same way that Cult of Ham said, you do not have a right to discriminate / deny service because of a 1964 Civil Rights Act, of that one aspect of it, anyways.
Okay.
I mean I mean, you and I, we debated side by side against him and some random geek, and he was pulling that appeal to law fallacy. And it was just unconvincing to me. It was unconvincing to you. I was making the point what we wanted to do is repeal that one aspect of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And what I want, I mean, I stated this to you on my 200 subscribers celebratory stream as well. Like going towards the back, we were talking about abortion then, and you mentioned Roe v. Wade isn't going away, and so on and so forth. And I was all like, that does not defeat the whole anti-abortion / pro-life arguments. I mean, we are going to try to repeal it. I mean, to say that it ain't going to be defeated isn't a way of completely defeating the arguments. Like, why? And I want to ask this one question: why is it that you do consistently say Roe v. Wade isn't going away? Is that a way of you trying to say, so give up, pro-lifers?
All right. Well, I was hoping to address the appeal to law fallacy you brought up. I'm not
Okay,
saying. I just want to quickly go over that, and then I'll answer your question.
Right.
I'm not saying just because it's the law, therefore it's correct on the terms of the caps for abortion. I don't think there's any point, really, to be completely honest, to change it, and I don't think it's likely to change. I'm not saying that because it's the law, therefore it's right. I mean, we've seen throughout history that is a horrible justification for various things. Now, to your question, and I actually want you to repeat the question because I don't want to misframe it. Go ahead.
My question was, why is it that you consistently say Roe v. Wade is not going away? And then an extension of that question is that a way of you trying to say, give it up, pro-lifers?
Okay. The reason I say it's not going away is I don't believe it has the political support to be overturned or have something succeed it. I don't think you would have the popular votes required to do it. I'm not using appeal to popularity fallacy. I'm just saying the public support for it is not, I don't think it's there. I do think that in terms of also Congress, I don't know if there's enough. I don't know the political positions of all of Congress that would be in favor of repealing Roe v. Wade. And I'm saying that the reason I say it's a settled issue is the same reason I call gay marriage a settled issue. The Supreme Court, and I'm not saying they always make the right decision, they have ruled that banning abortion was unconstitutional. And just like the same way they ruled banning gay marriage was unconstitutional. I think that no matter how many times you repeal or overturn Roe v. Wade in terms of the law, it will get struck down, and it is essentially the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Well, one can try to expect to try to change other people's minds. I mean, this is the reason why I'm on a platform like this and why Ben Shapiro speaks out and so many other pro-lifers and so forth, is to try and change minds so that we can get to the position of possibly overturning Roe v. Wade and raising up the cap. And by the way, I also want to state that if Roe v. Wade was to be repealed, that would not be, at least in my opinion, that would not be the utter end of the abortion discussion. There are still going to be some states that are going to decide for themselves, let's allow abortion for in this case and at this point, and other states that are going to say, let's ban it outright, or let's just allow it early on, but for the rest of it, don't allow it. All right. And so I kind of want to rewind a little bit and just want you to reiterate. Okay. So the reason why I ask is, do you actually believe in capping abortion at 10 weeks? Or is it just a point of compromise? I mean, it's kind of the same way with me and welfare. I don't believe in raising welfare, but that's an area of compromise for me. I mean, is that kind of the same way that you feel about putting the cap at 10 weeks?
Yes. Basically, that it like I said, yeah, it is kind of a compromise. Going off of how you put it, I'm just following their logic and seeing where they're going to go with it. However, if they can prove sentience is at, for instance, 10 weeks, then all right, then I would say legally, if that is the case, legally, then sure, cap it. But for the record, because I mentioned this, I feel like it's important to show everybody. So a pretty lopsided, and again, I'm not saying this makes abortion justified. I'm not appealing to popularity. But as of 2017, public support, hang on a second.
All right, let me see if I can like I want to try and see if I can like find some polls that mention majority opinion of either banning abortion in most cases or all cases, because I recall like reading CNS news articles that go talking about the popular opinion being to overall ban abortion, like maybe not completely, but mostly. Okay. 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 I'm trying to like figure out how to word this. And so we have S-Man Speaks, who apparently has left at the moment right now. Okay, so abortion approval in the U.S. Okay. All right, I think I'm going to follow that same exact search so that I can like get multiple polls up. Everybody, please hold on for this because apparently S-Man is AFK. What Americans think of abortion by Vox? No, thank you. What the polls say about Americans' abortion in the Supreme Court by Vox? No, thank you. Americans haven't changed their mind much on abortion, but they 538. Gallup finds Americans still divided on abortion. Abortion polling report. Abortion Pew Research Center. PewResearch.org. All right. Legal only under certain circumstances. Legal under any circumstances. Legal in all circumstances. Okay. What's the poll that S-Man has pulled up? Is this Gallup? Oh no, this is Pew right here. I have a Gallup poll that is like saying something completely different from what his poll is saying. Hopefully we can like get him back here with respect to the. All right. All right, so S-Man is back, and so we can get on with this. I mean, I researched my own polls because I remember explicitly, like, CNSnews.com saying of how, like, little over 50% of Americans either wanted to mostly or completely ban abortion. But what's your poll say?
Okay, I just got back. Okay, so fucking
like
relative.
You sound like that you ran to try to get back to your mic, like literally sprinted.
Yeah, I was afraid you were gonna be like, well, S-Man hasn't returned, so fuck this stream, everybody.
No.
Also, I've been running to address what was going on out there anyway. So my poll says 57% say abortion should be legal in all or most cases, while 40% say it should be illegal in all or most cases. So
Right.
It is a pretty lopsided 17% margin of difference between illegal in all or some and legal in all and some.
I have
from 1995 to 2017.
I have literally the same source pulled up, but I also have a Gallup poll that says, do you think abortion should be legal under any circumstances, legal only under certain circumstances, or illegal in all circumstances? And those who think it should be illegal in all circumstances is a minority. This, I would presume, is people who believe that it should be capped at 0 weeks and barely, if at all, believe in the life of mother exception. But the dark green up here says legal only under circumstances. I think a person could like comfortably put me under that because I'm not fully convinced of the legal case to be made. Like I've said before, I'm not fully convinced of the legal case to be made. How to make the legal case that it should be capped at 0 weeks, but more like at 7 weeks, or at least 9 weeks is how I feel. And then okay, 50% legal only under certain circumstances. 29% legal under any circumstances, and 18% illegal in all circumstances. But with
so
the
it's like a
what?
so it's like a rough majority to a plurality of support in the United States for on this issue, for the for
Well,
legal abortion in certain circumstances.
a plurality would technically be the largest number, but it doesn't make up most of the number given in a group, or that's my
Yeah.
explanation. I mean, 29%, that is not like the biggest number here. It's 50%.
No, I meant for the around the 50%. Like 50% is a majority, and anything under 50%, if it makes up the most of it, if it's the highest number, then it's a plurality. Like when an example is the support for NAFTA, a plurality of Americans support NAFTA. That's just an example, but yeah.
This is quite odd, though. I'm sorry. I want to read this as well. It's quite odd, though, because the people who identify as pro-choice or pro-life, it is like equal, like dead set, says Gallup here, anyways. And I think, I mean, 48% consider themselves pro-life, but then again, only 29% say legal under any circumstances. So I think that is where that America and you and I, for anecdotal example, is getting hung up on this abortion discussion, is what do we define as pro-life or pro-choice?
Yeah, especially that. And the fact it's nearly a statistical dead heat.
You're going to expose your own DMs.
Oh, fuck. God damn it.
You almost did. I mean, the screensaver kind of chopped out there for you, kind of cut out there for you.
Oh, good.
As you were about to click on Cult of Forbidden Word.
Yeah, he wanted to have a stream in a few days. But anyway, so, yeah. I mean, the topic is divisive. There are various political topics in the country that are divisive. However, so it's still a sensitive issue even 45 years after the Supreme Court said banning abortion was unconstitutional. I would argue that in this case, I think that attitudes on the issue of abortion were probably more lopsided in terms of in terms of decades ago, where it was probably mostly pro-life, anti-abortion, and whatnot. But from Pew Forum, which I showed earlier, it was more lopsided, like 57 to 40% on the issue, legal in all or most cases. So I think if you just combine legal abortion in all or most circumstances, and then illegal in all or most circumstances, I'm pretty sure be a lot, like the numbers would be increased. Basically, you merge the numbers is what I'm trying to say. So it's lopsided in favor, almost 60-40 for legal in all or most circumstances, to 40% saying the opposite.
I mean, another problem is that both Pew and Gallup are using different terms to define their polling groups.
Yeah, that is, and
that's a problem with a whole lot of polls. In fact, that is.
Yeah, I try not to. I try not to base my opinions off of polls, but I'm arguing here that in this case, this would obviously go with challenge, and I'm not sure that currently, at least where it stands right now, that the support of overturning Roe v. Wade, I'm not convinced that it would be sustainable. But if this is what you're saying, we could go more into detail about the public opinion anyway.
So I think what we can say right now, though, is that abortion is not like overwhelmingly favored, like a super majority of 60 or 70% or something like that. It's kind of mixed, and I think there is still a fight to be put up, is what I can get off of both of these polls, I would say, but definitely the Gallup poll.
Yeah, especially in the Pew Forum, if you look down here, it mentions abortion in most, but if you look at these numbers here, a plurality of Americans, a very, very, very small plurality, a non-absolutist position saying in most but not all cases abortion should be legal or illegal. So
Oh,
33 to 24%. But if you were to take the position that in all cases abortion should be either legal or illegal, so by small margins, the legal position would dominate or at least be one over than the illegal position.
okay.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
various statistics, and it's very lopsided in terms of like if you just look at it right here, it's pretty lopsided based on party and ideology and whatnot.
of course,
But
independents would be rather split, and they would not be overwhelmingly one side or the other because independents, I mean, going off the American standard, anyways, are typically not as ideological partisan. No.
yeah, however, if just in this poll itself, 60 to 38, that is pretty lopsided. Same with Democrats and Republicans. Uh, they're rather lopsided. Uh, you know, but yeah, I would argue that maybe you guys would have the public support, but I don't think at least right now. As to how long it would take, I'm not sure, but I don't think right now. I don't think right now you could repeal Roe v. Wade, and I don't think it's going to be the solution to the problem anyway. I do think that like I've
Well,
I've mentioned before, I would wish for fewer abortions to happen. However, I accept that it is most likely not going to be the case.
thing is, I don't think there has ever been an actual push to repeal Roe v. Wade. I mean, do you know of any example in history of people actually trying to do that? I mean, I know there are examples that people could point out of Republicans trying to regulate or heavily regulate or pull back abortion somewhat, like trying to put the federal cap from 24 to 20 weeks instead. But was there any push to actually fully repeal the SCOTUS ruling, Roe v. Wade?
No, however, there are various states, like you mentioned, various states that oftentimes uh, try and put forth legislation, which of course gets struck down uh, on this issue. And I am in favor of states' rights to an extent. I do support the 10th Amendment, but not in this area. Uh,
I
and
mean,
go ahead.
technically, it's not even like abortion is mentioned in the Constitution itself. I mean, abortion is mentioned in the ruling. I mean,
Yeah, but the Supreme Court ruled that the ban on abortion violated the Constitution under, I think, if I remember the correctly, I thought it was the 14th Amendment. I'm going to quickly check this because it's going to bother me until I can find out, because I know that they said it violated the Constitution. Uh, let's see.
I mean, many people can try and tell me that something violates the Constitution, but doesn't mean that doesn't tell whether or not I'm going to just plainly take their word for it. I
I'm
mean,
not saying
I
you
would
have
I
to.
would read the Constitution itself for myself for me
Okay.
to make an opinion as to whether or not it's actually against the Constitution.
All right. So I got it pulled up right here. So I'm going to show
Sorry.
everybody for the record as to what it says on the record. Okay. So, issued in 1973 by the U.S. Supreme Court on the issue of the constitutionality of laws that criminalized or restricted access to abortions, the court ruled at a margin of 7-2 that a right to privacy under the the due process clause of the 14th Amendment extended to a woman's decision to have an abortion, but that this right must be balanced against the state's interests in regulating abortions, protecting women's health, and protecting the potentiality of human life. Arguing that these state interests became stronger over the course of a pregnancy, the court resolved this balancing test by tying regulation to abortion to the third trimester of the pregnancy. And apparently, under Planned Parenthood v. Casey in 1992, the court rejected Roe's trimester framework while affirming its central holding that a woman has a right to an abortion until fetal viability.
Wait, it said which amendment was it saying? It was trying to pull like something about the due
The due
process of
process
privacy.
clause of the 14th Amendment.
Due process clause. I would have to like see which exact section it says that.
I'm gonna probably post it when I mirror this. I will most likely post the links to these in the description for those that are gonna watch this. But in general, you know, I can fully defend, and I sometimes have to fully defend why I don't personally like abortion. I didn't go too specific into it in this stream, but if anyone wants me to, or if I need to, I will. But yeah, I guess I could have gone here to see the political support for this, for Roe v. Wade. Although I probably wouldn't get any specific statistics on this. All right, so Darkhan I will maybe concede the popularity argument, although I'm not saying that makes abortion right. In 2014, 50% of Americans believe that abortion should be legal under certain circumstances. 28% believe abortion should be legal under any circumstances, and 21% believe that abortion should be illegal in all circumstances. And
I'm trying to read this, so I'm gonna have to maximize the screen here.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. In 2009, it said 53% should believe it should be legal under certain circumstances, and 23% believe it should be legal in under any circumstances. So maybe I will concede that maybe the support for it is starting to decrease a little bit. But again, in this poll, Americans refer
kind of what I just read when I was pulling up the Gallup poll, though.
Yeah, well, the poll conducted in 2009. I don't know when the poll you referenced was conducted. I didn't catch that part. In the same poll, go ahead.
It has it set up like a chart, and the reason, okay, the recent figure is 2018 on the chart. So it was like 57% around 2010, and it fell down to deadlock 50% in 2018.
Oh, okay. But yeah, the definitions I think are going to be kind of important here to talk about what's pro-life, what's pro-choice, and whatnot, as that became a kind of an issue in your video to me. Let me see. I know people like to say you shouldn't use the definition and just ride off of that, but I think in this case we're going to have to set some type of framework here. So, pro-life by definition is opposing abortion and euthanasia, which yeah, generally some pro-lifers I speak to generally do oppose euthanasia.
Opposing abortion and euthanasia, but the thing is that there are some exceptions to the rule when it comes to like the pro-life movement. I mean, for example, they believe in the life of mother exception, for example. So I mean, it seems kind of like a blanket definition right there. The definition of pro-life, the opposition to abortion. And it's kind of vague and ambiguous. And so I say there would obviously be some flexibility on the definition, I would think. Red Feather says in the chat, hey, everyone. Hello, Red Feather. I mean,
hello.
I think a better way to define what pro-life would be the general opposition to abortion. Like,
yeah.
Red Feather says, I'm at least limited abortion. Okay. So what I want to like ask you precisely, so you already said that 10 weeks is not what you actually personally believe is when the cap should be, but it's only the area of compromise that you offer up to pro-lifers. When do you actually believe the cap should be put? Is it 20 or 24 weeks or what?
That I'm still trying to figure out. If the pro-lifers are correct, which if that's the case, I'm more than willing to concede that. Like I said earlier, if they are actually correct, which I'm not trying to be smug here, but I'm just saying if they actually are correct, I will more than concede that and say, all right, then 10 weeks.
Well, okay, but you say already that you dislike, that you absolutely hate late-term abortions. So tell me what you define as late-term abortions. Would it be 24 weeks beyond? 24 weeks and beyond? Okay, so 24 weeks would be when that you definitely believe it should be capped.
Yeah, it's already the case in my home state anyway.
Okay, so I think that's where the confusion is. I was taking your words as you saying that you actually believe now in capping abortion at 10 weeks. Not that that was just a mere area of compromise. I thought you outright believed in that, and so that's why I kept on insisting that you're anti-abortion. If
Yeah, yeah.
I had actually heard you articulate, no, this is just my area of compromise. What I actually believe should be the cap myself is 24 weeks. I would have just gone ahead and say that, yeah, you are a very moderate pro-choicer.
And here's the thing.
I will
I
retract my
will.
video if you would like me to.
I don't honestly care. I mean, you calling me anti-abortion. I mean, you didn't call me a Nazi or anything. If you did, I'd definitely say please retract that. But you calling me anti-abortion, I don't really care. And here's the thing: I will admit I don't always articulate what I am, what I'm thinking to the best of my ability. I admit that. I mean, I'm only human, and I will make mistakes, and I admit my mistakes from time to time. You especially know when I had to make my own retraction video to you. But to continue on these definitions, as I
So
think it's
sorry.
going to be important.
What about the video on me?
No, what I'm talking about is when I had to make my own retraction video to you. Remember?
Oh, you're talking
Yeah,
about regarding Voltaire and how much I cared
yeah,
about
yeah,
him
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
innocence.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was
But
kind of distracted with what Red Feather said. He says in the chat here, how about the stat that black babies are 35% of abortions or the location of the clinics?
okay,
I
to
don't
I don't.
see. You can go ahead and address that, but I do not see of how that is like relevant to the points necessarily that we brought up. But you go ahead.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't give a damn if what race of babies make up what percentage of abortions. I've always thought to be a really pointless thing to bring up, as it sounds like they're trying to make accusations of racism, and it's unrealistic because if they're, it's like, what is the point of you bringing that up? It's like, what do you want it to be equally split among races as for what is the abortion for that for each race? I don't think anyone should care whatsoever. I think they should be colorblind as to what gets aborted. It shouldn't. You shouldn't want to mix race with that, as it's going to sound racially biased. But
The
um,
thing I feel about that, what would make that talking point a whole lot more legitimate is if, like, say, black people were being literally forced by law to have abortions. But
mhm.
that, as far as I know, as far as you know, as far as we both know, that ain't the case. Red Feather also says, "Oh, sorry, I just got here." That's okay, Red Feather. It kind of is, but considering they are 13% of the population, seems strange. He says, "Well,
Mhm.
as long as they're having the abortions of their own free will, I do not see of what the systemic racism would be. As much as I think that it is utterly abortion is utterly nasty, but if say someone within a given race is willfully or the majority of people within a given race are willfully doing something,
Mhm.
and then it
Yeah.
would not really count. Then it wouldn't count as systemic racism.
Yeah. And I will also. I want to make this clear for the record. Just because my inner mind is like kind of panicking because I want to make sure I don't like twist my own words or fuck up here. Abortion is an issue I've really thought about a lot, especially even during this year and with regards to the Trump administration, as it
Yeah,
is a topic that, yeah,
you said stuff along the lines earlier.
yeah, like I've thought about it a lot. I don't want to just I don't want to just say something and then think, was that right? I want to make sure I get it as right as I can the first time. But um, so yeah, it's compromised generally with pro lifers and anti abortionists. But yeah, if you, a moderate pro-choicer sounds accurate. However, if I did
I
believe,
mean,
yes, we should cap it at 10 weeks, I'm still willing to argue that's not necessarily even that's not really anti-abortion, but more of
um,
maybe reluctant pro-choice.
I mean, I'm for like capping it like right around that same time, except I say 9 weeks at least. I mean, that's only off by 1 week, and yet I still consider myself pro-life slash anti-abortion. Would that? I mean, this is kind of a question that I raised in my video to you. I mean, I'm for allowing abortions for when brainwaves are not detected. And what I put a solid week on that is say 7 to 9 weeks. If you can, if you want to be technical with me, that would mean that I am pro-choice for the first 7 to 9 weeks. But does that mean that my overall position is pro-choice? Would you think that's the case or no?
Maybe. I mean, it's a good thing you take into account your general attitude, and then I would call it the overall position. Yeah, I think that's an important one to factor in. So, like, let's say I wanted to legally, which I wouldn't even mind if the attempts were made. I just don't see them as realistic. I wouldn't mind if attempts were made to roll it down to 10 weeks. My attitude is rather apathetic to where it stands currently anyway. But the general thing is, if it depends on your intent entirely and your overall view of abortion. I don't personally like it, but I would defend its legality. And I would take that attitude as being pro-choice. In fact, I would argue that if I were to call myself anti-abortion and speak to most anti-abortionists, I'm pretty sure they would tell me I'm a counterfeit anti-abortionist, or that I'm a pro-choicer in anti-abortionist clothing.
Do you know how many times I have been like, well, okay, people haven't outright said that I am a pro-choicer in pro-life's clothing, but they kind of act that way with people that I have debated in my personal life on the issue. They get kind of edgy, I would say. I mean, they don't get outright angry or completely disagreeing with me. And in fact, I reassured to them that if the legal case can be made that yes, abortion should be banned all the way up to the moment of conception, say some future generation finds that argument and can make it, well then good for them. They've banned abortion entirely, and I was wrong for saying allow it at 7 or below 7 weeks.
All
but
right.
All the same, they still accept me as overall anti-abortion / pro-life. But,
yeah.
But they don't call me an outright fraud.
Yeah. All right. So Humane Mind in the chat, I'm just gonna have to address this. He says, and I quote, 61% of all Black pregnancies end in abortion. Candace Owens said, and I quote, "You have a better chance of surviving the Black Plague than a Black woman's womb."
Okay. Well, yeah. Well, that's just like your opinion, man, and a rather unbased opinion, considering that it is coming from one of the biggest pseudo-conservatives out there, that being Candace Owens. I also kind of want to address the chat a little bit more. Red Feather says, I don't believe in systemic racism. I just thought that was an interesting fact. So, no, I did not mean to imply that you were like one of those BLM types or anything like that, Red Feather. I was just venting off what was in my head, basically. Especially considering the origin of Planned Parenthood, he says as well. Brandon says, hello, Brandon. And he says that Josh eats abortions.
What the fuck?
Maybe that's why he has so much brain rot going on, is that he eats so many 20
Dude, I'm having my dinner, for fuck's sake. I don't want to picture that. Jesus, I'm having a fucking hamburger and you're telling me this shit. Ew. You sick bastard. Great. Now you're gonna make me a fucking vegan.
Well. Anyway, Red Feather says, hey, Brandon, which I'm still supposed to debate S-Man about the Planned Parenthood stats they put out. Right. Humane Mind says 61% of all black pregnancies end in abortion. Wait, what? Oh. That is rather over-representing it, but I would again say that as long as it is willful and consensual on their part, that it is not a sign of systemic racism. All right.
So
Humane Mind says, my opinion. No. I was mean to refer to say that was Candace Owens' opinion, Humane Mind. Excuse me for saying, I did not mean your as in you yourself. I meant your as in Candace Owens. Sorry.
Also, what authority figure is she anyway?
I do not know why. She just grew too fast, I guess, to the point that people started thinking that she was an authority figure. I mean, Kanye West thinks so.
I like the way Candace Owen thinks.
And he acts like he never heard of any other conservative figures. Okay, I'm going to address the chat a little bit later, but I feel like there was something else that you said that I kind of wanted to address, but I am forgetting it. I don't know. I guess I would just move on to one of the next points that was brought up in yesterday's scuffle for as more of an example, like libertarianism and abortion. Like, I thought that was resolved. I thought that you no longer thought that abortion was contradictory with libertarianism. So
all right,
let's get into that, Cage.
Yeah.
Shall we?
All right. So, for the record, I first opened this can of worms back when we were having the ideology stream on DarkCon's channel last year. Loudmouth addressed that, but I wasn't sure how to respond, and I wasn't sure what to make of what was said, so I rather just conceded the point, as I wasn't sure what to think about it, and I'd have to think about it a little more afterwards. So I thought about it, and he was saying something along the lines of, and I don't remember verbatim, but it was something about what you consider a life. So you could have the position of pro-life, pro-choice, but you would not be less of a libertarian. And you know, when I had that stream with Voltaire, which I think he wanted to have a second one, considering how kind of bad that one was, just to,
and I guess, short.
Yeah, it was rather short, and he ended it in a weird way. But yeah, it was like, okay, I don't consider, you know, until, you know, the 24-week mark or the 10-week or what the fuck ever, whenever that date is, you know, until that date arrives, I wouldn't consider that fetus or whatever human. So
okay, and that's exactly the point here. You said in your tweet yesterday, depends on what you consider human. Fetuses aren't fucking humans. I mean, you're exactly going on the whole talking point of depends on what you consider human, and you consider them human at 24 weeks. I say 9 weeks, for example, and so yeah, go on.
Yeah, and I mean, just quickly, I know this is something I'll probably think about in the future, and maybe a few years from now I'll talk about this again, but that, you know, if we go off of your case, it's like, when I said banning abortion, I mean entirely repealing Roe v. Wade and banning abortion almost in its entirety.
Okay, I mean, I would agree to disagree with that, but I wouldn't so passionately disagree with the idea of thinking that it is contradictory to libertarianism to say that you want to ban abortion up to the very moment of conception, even though there is no brain activity detected and so on and so forth. I would agree to disagree on that. But I wouldn't passionately disagree with it because I do not know what the legal case would be made against that again. Sorry that I keep on cutting you out, but
no, it's fine. It's fine. But so the reason I also mentioned libertarianism as an example was to mention those that would legally ban it is, like I said before, it's bringing more government onto people's lives, and generally libertarians are saying we don't want more government on people's lives. And I saw it as, you know, the entire libertarian movement was created due to concerns of big government over, you know, opaque and non-transparent government and things like that. And I would argue that in terms of the topic of abortion, that until you get your sentience, you're not a human. And I would argue that at that point, there's no issue with abortion. But when the sentience arrives, that is where the problem begins. And that's where I would say that you lose the right to abortion. I'm sorry?
I would say that overall, I would agree with that statement. Overall, I mean, I mostly agree with what you say. And that's kind of the whole point and stance on my anti-abortion beliefs is you know, is that you can still be a libertarian and be against abortion for in some certain cases. And you know why that is because rights are coming in conflict with one another. I mean, in the case of late terms, for example, that even moderate pro-choicers believe there is that should not be an exception, that should be illegal. They say that is a case of rights. Well, they do not word it like the way that I do. I say rights coming in conflict with one another because it's the best way that I can explain it. Because you have bodily autonomy coming in conflict with right to life, mother's bodily autonomy versus unborn person's right to life, and that person did nothing wrong. I mean, this is kind of what I've been hammering at with War Corpse in our 2 abortion debates, and I think I got more to him on my second debate on that point. But yeah, I mean, sorry, go on. I lost my train of thought.
Okay. Well, it's also in I think the context is important as to whether it's your legal position or your philosophical or fundamental position. Like if you would say philosophically you don't like abortions and you wish it would be capped philosophically, but you wouldn't put it into practice. Okay, it's an odd position, but I wouldn't say it makes you not a libertarian. But and I will also admit that just because you might not agree with libertarians on one specific issue, like me with capital punishment, that doesn't make you a non-libertarian. I will admit that. Okay. But if you would put it into practice, then I would say it does cause some bit of a snag. Not like a huge balloon contradiction, but just like a bit of a snag. I actually said that verbatim in the first stream that opened up this can of worms.
That's exactly what you said. It's a bit of a snag. And I'll say that I agree with putting it that way, saying it's a bit of a snag, because it's another area, it's another position that a person will have to justify to other people. I mean, it might be it might take a little bit of time to try and explain that position. I mean, it's not as simple of a position to explain as, say, I believe in private property rights. Why? Because people's personal liberty. But in the case of abortion, why is it that you are against abortion? Because I believe in liberty. And then the person will laugh at you and say, no, you don't. You don't believe in the liberty of the mother's body. And then you have to go through the other hoops of explaining, but rights are being in conflict with one another. You got the unborn person's right to life versus the mother's bodily autonomy, and so on and so forth. So to say that it's a bit of a snag, you have a little bit of a point there. And okay, if we want to go off on a limb there, a person could also say that being for restricting immigration or for the death penalty would be a bit of a snag, possibly as well.
I'm willing to concede that. I mean, I think the most hardcore, and I don't mean that in extremist, I mean hardcore and how strongly you believe of libertarianism would be anarcho-capitalism. It's pretty well known. I'm not an ANCAP. You're not either. I'm still in favor of immigration laws and capital punishment, although it's much more nuanced than I'm able to get into here tonight. But that's for another time anyway. But yeah.
All right. So there's some stuff in the chat that I want to address. Humane Mind is going on a long spiel here. Actually, before I get to the chat, I want to address. Man, I do not know how to connect this, but it was something about you sounding kind of pissy in the way that you delivered on libertarianism and abortion as contradictory with one another.
Where was that?
Let me show you it.
If it's a tweet, then again, like Humane has pointed out, that me and Humane have said that text sounds angrier than if we were speaking in person. I mean, further in the thread, it gets much more heated, of course, between you and me, but right. I mean, it gets much more heated, but generally, I mean, I was a little heated and I was kind of annoyed, but I wouldn't say I was like, Cult of Ham level enraged or War Corpse enraged.
Well, it almost came off. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah,
people
I
say it
mean,
almost came off as that with the last sentences. Like I could just literally imagine War Corpse raging in front of his camera saying, "Fetuses aren't fucking humans. They're in the process of becoming humans. So protecting essentially nothing is a farce."
what the fuck kind of impression is that? Jesus, Dark Khan, that sounded more angsty than Secular Hawk, and he's younger than me.
And so
Oh,
anyway,
I cringe.
I cannot remember what point that I was want to connect this tweet to though, so I'll just move on to the chat here. Humane Mind says that is based on percentages. 30 to 50% of the population died in the Black Plague. 50 to 61% of unborn Black get aborted.
Yeah.
Oh,
Either way,
that is interesting.
I mean, here's the thing.
Maybe Candace Owens does have a bit of a point. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably going to be a need for a more nuanced discussion on that itself, not abortion itself, but the statistics of race and gender and whatnot. I mean, if people are going to make the claim, then I'm fine with discussing it. So, Humane Mind also says in the chat, no one is saying that it is because they are black. There are various contributing factors, but this is a tragedy. Okay, fair enough. Roe v. Wade isn't what makes abortion legal. Abortion was legal in Texas prior to Roe v. Wade. It wasn't legal outside of rape, incest, and pregnancy complications. Roe v. Wade opened up abortion for convenience. And I'm going to be okay, here's the thing. On convenience, I honestly, and I know this is going to sound smug and Owen McDonald-esque, but I don't honestly care about that. And like my priorities are not on abortion for convenience.
I haven't honestly, I haven't heard Owen McDonald just say anything along the lines of "I don't care." I think he cares too much on too many things.
Damn right, and that's why I put esque at the end of his rather British last name. When someone is sleeping, they are not sentient. Therefore, sleeping people are not human. Doesn't make sense. Okay, okay, that makes sentience. Sentience is the capacity to feel, perceive, or experience subjectively, which is the definition of sentience.
Okay.
That doesn't. Here's the thing about that, actually, and I'm not going to debate Humane in the chat. I'm just going to address these points, and after a certain point, I'm not going to continue to debate this on this stream. That maybe you're still sentient. Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't try to address every single chat message. Sorry. Go on. Yeah,
but you're still sentient when you're asleep. You can still feel pain. It will wake you up. Like if Humane was asleep and I sucker punched him in the face, he's gonna wake up.
I mean, yeah, and it's quite odd to me. I mean, I can still hear certain sounds when I'm asleep. Like I could be dreaming, but I'm hearing a movie go on, and I dream a dream that is based off of the audio that I'm hearing for that movie. I mean, there's still that form of sentience. I mean, that doesn't make much sense to me to say that because we're asleep we aren't sentient. I mean, to a certain extent we are sentient. We aren't as sentient as if we were wide awake, but still there's some traces of sentience. My right to swing my fist ends where your face begins. The mother's right to choose for herself ends where her child's well-being begins. And that I would agree with. I mean, that's a simpler way of putting my whole rights come in conflict with one another talking point. Very difficult to de-escalate a Twitter conversation because both people sound angrier than their intent.
Yeah. All right, so
depends on how deep the sleep is, says Humane Mind. Well, okay, I'll just I'm just
going to concede that point right there. I'll have to think about that more in detail later. Anyway,
if somebody is in a coma, then I guess somebody could make a point that there is no sentience going on. They're only sentient inside their own head, inside the dream or whatever that they are experiencing inside their own head. But they aren't sentient to the outside world because, said comatose state.
Yeah.
Okay. I cannot remember.
If there's anything we don't address or you want to mention, just pin a comment on the stream, and I'll probably look at it later. And you can just
I'm looking at the tweets here because this is kind of part of what I wanted to address. And I don't want to go on here for too long because I hadn't even had dinner myself. But okay. So some of the stuff I wanted to address was related to the Twitter scuffle that we had yesterday. And you said they aren't alive. You can't deprive life from something that's not alive. And so I literally thought I was hearing like the same exact logic that I heard Owen McDonald espouse during my debate with him.
That was out of yesterday. Yesterday I was getting rather pissed off in this Twitter scuffle, and I just typed that out in response. Like, I'm pretty sure if this was a calmer setting, it would have been. I probably would not have used that point, and I don't remember every single thing Owen or War Corpse or whoever the hell you've debated has said on the topic itself.
Okay, and that's kind of one of the things that led me to be kind of teed off. I mean, I don't want to be talking too much about why we were angry at each other yesterday, but
yeah,
part of the reason why I was mad was because bringing up old arguments that I thought I had already sufficiently responded to. I mean, that's just the point that a person in general is just going to have to like come to grips with, is that you aren't going to completely convince a person to like just completely drop a talking point.
Yeah, that is. I
mean, I guess that's a flaw on my part then, but I'm just explaining why it was that I was mad.
No, I get that. Is there anything else you want to mention here, or is that sufficient?
Well, okay, so we've gone on for about an hour and 10 minutes or something like that, but I'm going to like close down these tweets. Okay, so there was a few others that we wanted to chat about, like, and we won't go into huge depth with them, but about overpopulation, for example.
Yeah,
you said I've heard of what Owen said in his debate against you when it got to the overpopulation segment. And it's not that I agreed with, I mean, and then in a later stream, you actually said it's strange because there's actually an area where Zach and Owen agree with each other on, and that is on the issue of overpopulation and that it can't happen. But the only thing that I agree with Owen on is his optimism on the subject. His approach to it, though, I completely disagree. He thinks that the solution to making it so that we don't overpopulate the earth is to socialize everything. But the thing is, I mean, even taking that into consideration, what he advocates for is stateless socialism. I mean, from what I have observed anyways. Yeah. And the way that he wants the revolt to happen is just that all the working people, or at least a good super majority of the working people, they unite and revolt together against the rich people, overthrow them, and they set up this socialist, this international, I almost said intergalactic, this international, but yeah, intergalactic if we start traveling the stars as well, but this international socialist utopia. And the thing is, you're not going to be able to convince that many minds. You're not going to like convince every single working person in the world of particularly his brand of socialism. You might convince like the supermajority of the world to say Bernie Sanders style of socialism or social democracy, more precisely, but not to the complete confiscation of private property rights, to even taking like the average mom and pop shop's business away from them. Mm-hmm. But as far as my own position on overpopulation goes, I believe that we can curtail overpopulation. Actually, if you look at the trends of the population, it's to like stop at 11 billion by 2100. At that point is going to even out and then start going down, possibly even. Sorry, I've rambled on long enough.
It's fine.
I'll give you a chance to speak.
Yeah, okay. So The reason I mentioned overpopulation in that stream, hang on a second. Yeah, the
your
reason I
mic
mentioned
is also starting to break up as well.
Yeah, god damn it. Hang on a second. Let me. Okay, is that better?
Yeah, it's a little better. Oh, I remember what else I was wanting to say about Owen. I wanted to mention this before I forget it. He needs like the supermajority of people to like believe in his type of socialism. By the
Not gonna
time that you
happen.
get the supermajority of people to believe in socialism, it might be to the point that we are so, or to what he believes, to the point that we are overpopulated too much with with capitalism to the point that we completely destroy the earth. So by then it would be too late to implement his socialism because hey, we're fucked.
Well, we would be either way, even if his socialism happens. But he's not even able to convince normal average Joes like us. He won't be able to convince a majority of the planet who have actual personalities outside of this shit. But yeah, okay. So the topic of the reason I mentioned it is I thought it was an inconsistency at the time. I was like, okay, you believe in climate change, you believe in global warming, but you don't think overpopulation contributes to that whatsoever. And we got into that whole scuffle, and I mean, the debate was, I will admit my performance wasn't the absolute strongest, but whatever. So the topic itself, I did discuss this with Humane, and I think he may have agreed with me, or he saw where I was coming from on the topic. It was on the issue of, okay, so let's go to the number 10 billion, because this is the number I used on that stream a few days ago with him. 10 billion. This is just relying on the faith of humanity, which isn't very strong, that if they had up to, let's say, the population started to surge from 7 billion right now to close to 10 billion, if they realize, hey, we're getting rather close to the number 10 billion, we might want to, either practice safer sex or just not fuck like rabbits and decrease. I'm sorry, your face is funny. Decrease the population.
Hey, by the way, on that point, have you ever seen Avengers: Age of Ultron? There was actually a funny line from Nick Fury, who's played by Samuel L. Jackson, by the way, where he goes like, "Ultron is increasing in his numbers faster than a Catholic rabbit."
I think I've not seen that clip in a while, but yeah. So
it just came to mind. I thought I'd reference that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the Amazing Atheist video, TJ Kirk, a while back. I don't remember when, where he said overpopulation is not a myth. And I've not seen your full video on the topic of overpopulation, but I definitely have my bookmarks to check it out.
The speech.
Yeah, when Dark Khan spoke in front of an entire room of people and was arguing for his position, Dark Khan, the speech maker, or public speaker, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, in general, I'm not of the type that says, "Oh my God, we are doomed any day now, everybody. If we do not control this, we are doomed any day now." Okay, so Cult of Ham says you're both faggots. Well,
inappropriate, bad grammar there.
Yeah, I mean, Cult of Ham's a progressive, so I mean, what do you expect? Joke. So Humane Mind says if you believe in humans negatively impacting climate, then overpopulation would make that worse. Yeah. Oop, and Ham and Humane are going to annoy, cuddle, and hate fuck in the chat. As Ham says, overpopulation is a massive problem, as is climate change. I think the argument will be made that it is a massive problem. I'm not convinced that it's going to hit us right now, but I think as time goes on, it will. But I ain't no progressive. I'm a populist. I thought you called yourself a progressive. I took your policies as progressive, populist, and protectionist.
Actually, I had asked him in my one-on-one interview with him, do you consider yourself a progressive? And he said no. I was actually almost tempted to cut you off there and say he doesn't even consider himself a progressive. He considers himself a leftist, libertarian, liberal, or something like that. I mean, that's the full title of his position, at least. I'm almost tempted to like go full screen with my Hangouts here just so that I can ignore the chat. I mean, what do you say? Shall we just ignore the chat?
Yeah, sure. I mean Humane.
It's a full screaming mode between Humane and Ham.
Yeah, and besides, they're going to be hate fucking in the chat anyway. So I just closed it myself. But yeah,
I'd like to come back to review it in a few minutes, but for right now, just let's Focus on each other, my love.
Darkon, for the record,
No.
I will Darkon, if you ever do that again, for the record, I will personally report this stream, bitch.
Okay, I guess that was a little bit overly edgy because you
It had the
are
big gay.
17. Ugh.
It had the big gay Darkon.
It had the big pedo.
Actually, that is precisely what it sounded like.
Oh, fuck.
Jesus, Darkon, you walked in on that one.
Oh, fuck.
Now everyone
No. For the record, everybody, I do not have any attraction at all to S-Man Speaks.
Yeah, and besides, I like my people just like how I like I can't think of it. I prefer people to have like a vagina before I'd be like, that's attractive. I'm sorry, Darkon. I don't mean to be. I mean to let you down gently, but also I'm not gay. Anyway,
although you do have like the intellectuality of a full-grown adult, so it's easy to make the mistake, and you have the face to easily enough pass as one as well. So
yeah, and now everyone is Darkon.
That poses an interesting question, actually. If you mistaken somebody who's actually 15 years old to be 18 years old, is it still considered pedophilia, technically?
I don't know, honestly. I've never thought about it like that. But now everyone is Darkon is preparing his anus with Vaseline when he goes to jail for this. When he goes to jail for this.
Oh, fuck.
I'm dying. What the? So now that Darkon is.
Oh man, this stream just gone from serious to very lightened up in a very dark way.
Darker than that room, boy.
Yeah, pun intended on my name too, by the way.
Yeah. So honestly, I don't think there's going to be a huge contention on the topic of overpopulation. Is it all right with you if we talk about spoilers? As I think it's fascinating.
Perhaps, but my thought is, okay, when I think about overpopulation, I'm going to more expound on that right now, is I don't believe that overpopulation is completely impossible. But it's kind of the same way that I think of climate change as well, is that it is not like I am not all doom and gloom about it, to say the least. I think humanity will figure itself out. I mean, America, for example, is already figuring itself out regarding energy, like switching from coal to natural gas, for example, something that's a little bit cleaner. As Loudmouth Reviews was hammering that point away with Owen during his debate against him, but Owen kept on ignoring that. And also,
he's a bitch.
Yeah, and also with overpopulation, what I think would like free up some space is if we did like vertical farming. I mean, I would much rather if we like put government funding, put government subsidies towards, and this isn't very free market of me, obviously, for me to be saying this, but I would much rather if government subsidies were put forth towards like vertical farming, so that we can like use up less space for getting humanity's food, for example. Okay, you're reading the side chat there, aren't you?
It's really so.
Okay. Ignore for a second, but that's how I feel about it. Is that I'm just more optimistic about it. I mean, not in Owen's socialism way of viewing it, but I'm optimistic in a rather capitalist kind of cross-capitalist government subsidies kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
Just not completely anarchist about it.
Yeah, I'm not doom and gloom about it. I just think that there's arguments to be made about it. But I'm just going to leave it off there. And I'll probably do it. Yeah, I saw the chat. Apparently, Humane Mind says S-Man is being super transphobic. They're called front holes, you bigot. Jesus fucking Christ. I can't believe I just did that. Anyway. So
it's a bit wonky and long, Cult of Ham says. Left populist is what like he likes his dick. Pay attention to me, then fist me, and I'll fist you in return. That's my best angry Cult of Ham impression, by the way. Or at least, anyway. I just realized what Humane nicknamed me. He gave me a third nickname now in the chat. DerpCon. DerpCon didn't say
Okay,
no
so now-
homo.
Yeah, you didn't say no homo, DarkCon. So, great. Now people are going to type S-Man X DarkCon, and I'm going to have to tell them to eat. Good job, DarkCon. Now I'm going to have to tell them to eat some Tide Pods in response, because now we're going to bring up dead memes. But,
He calls me DorkCon, Dark Convict, and now DerpCon.
if you ever become a communist, I'm going to call you Dark Commie.
Oh, that's perfect, actually. Everyone gets fisted, says Cold of Ham.
Ham, I would actually much rather have to spend the entire day with a Mormon than fucking
Get fisted by him.
Shave Man wishes he was a front hole.
Okay.
For lesbians, Humane for lesbians.
And Cold of M also says, DarkyCon is gonna love this chat if he ever reads it. Okay, that was pretty bad, actually. I'll work on my Cult of Ham impersonation some other time. Okay, I'm back, says Red Feather. Humane says, wow, S-Man being super... Oh, okay, you already read that. And laugh my ass off. We are talking about being gay and getting fisted, says Red Feather. I don't know how. Ha ha ha, front hole. What's darker, the front hole or the rear hole? Ooh. I want to kick someone in their front hole and shave their back holes. It says Ham. No, you shave the front hole and bleach the rear, says Red Feather. Okay. Hey, S-Man, you still there? S-Man? Okay, I don't think I've cut out. Chat, am I still here? Say something to me in the chat if you can still hear me. If I'm cut out or not. Humane Mind, Cult of Ham, Red Feather, somebody say something. Say, we can hear you, DarkCon. Maybe S-Man like left for a little bit without saying anything? I don't know. S-Man, you there? Oh, okay. Oh, damn. You guys aren't seeing this, but S-Man left the group chat. I don't know if that's because of a poor internet connection or what, but yeah. Okay. So Red Feather, Humane both say that I'm still here, so thank you. But I wanted to like read this one particular message from Humane that is hello? S-Man?
Cult of Ham is a front hole. Sorry, sorry, I had a bit of a lag happen.
Okay, yeah, I completely lost you there, and I was all like, am I losing connection? Somebody in the chat say something to confirm to me whether I lost connection. And they confirmed to me that I have not lost connection. But anyway, as Humane Mind says in the chat, working on my Sassman and Dark Comp fanfics as you speak.
Humane, you son of a bitch. You know what? I should actually write a fanfic between Cucked of Ham and Inhumane Mindless or whatever. I mean, the two have had 3 debates where they were just hate fucking each other the entire time. I had to tell them to stop getting so kinky in the fucking stream.
LMAO, is that like saying you're a pussy? Asks Red Feather. That was exactly what he was saying to Ham. Is that
damn right, motherfucker.
Yep. Okay, so now I have a 4th nickname for me invented by Humane Mind, and that would be Dark Comp.
Jesus Christ. Anyway,
How Hitler.
there's so many clips I could make memes out of.
Hail Caesar. This is me doing the Roman salute. Anyway.
Everybody, I'm going to be making a short film in dedication to the Dark Conservatarian, and it's going to be so dank. So dank.
And I actually have to give it to Humane Mind. He says, I'm working on S-Man and DarkCon fan fictions as you speak. And actually that's something that a person could like joke about us, is that you and I are so close it's almost like a gay married couple.
Well, I guess that marriage will end in my suicide. Anyway.
Well, sorry for bringing it there, but I literally go thinking to myself sometime in the middle of the day, wow, a person literally could make fun of me and S-Man for saying that we're gay buddies or something. I mean, you and I do make Thug Life videos contributed in each other's honor,
Yes.
Hey, off topic, but did you see the crap that was going on in Germany the other day? Says Red Feather. Humane says, please do us a favor and make a murder suicide. And make
your wish is my command, Senior Humane. But yeah.
Anyway, so there was some other things. Oh, right. Spoiler effect. All right. So we'll have a little bit of a discussion about this.
Yeah.
But it won't be lengthy.
Of course. I don't think it will be very lengthy. So for those who don't know, a spoiler effect is defined as the effect of vote splitting between candidates or ballot questions who often have similar ideologies. So in the United States,
I bumped my own desk.
It's all right. I didn't even hear it. But so there's various examples of elections. If you go to Wikipedia, they have plenty where it's argued that a third-party candidate or independent has spoiled an election due to their presence. The only one I agree with thus far that could be argued as a spoiler was the 1912 election between incumbent Republican President William Howard Taft, former Republican turned progressive President Theodore Roosevelt, and incumbent Democratic New Jersey Governor Woodrow Wilson. It was actually so split that Roosevelt came in second place. Taft, who was the president, came in third.
Right.
That is a good example of it.
I wonder why it was that he was so disapproved. I mean, I almost want to say that it was because he made that he invented the income tax, but I don't know. I can't remember exactly if it was invented during
Roosevelt was pretty popular, and the thing is that he did not approve of the conservatism of Taft, and he tried to wrestle the nomination away from the GOP, but that didn't work, so he created the Progressive Party, and that is what caused the split. Like, if you look at it, it was extremely close. One of the lowest, like 41% is one of the smallest percentages for a winning candidate in American history. Another good example is the 2000 election between George W. Bush and Al Gore. I've actually made an entire video talking about and arguing against the idea that Ralph Nader spoiled that election. An example DarkCon has provided himself was the 2016 election in the state of Utah, where Evan McMullin placed third with 21% of the popular vote with almost 250,000 votes, which is a pretty strong showing for a third-party candidate. And I think it was the strongest in the entire country, if I'm not mistaken.
But it actually was, because I looked at the numbers myself, and Gary Johnson, I don't even think he got 10% in his home state, New Mexico. Maybe
I think he did North Dakota.
I can't remember, but he did not get that very high. I mean, he only got 10% in at least one or two states, but he did not pull out very strong.
In the national vote, he did, but on a state-by-state basis, he consistently...
Huh? That was my alarm if you heard something, but anyway.
No, I didn't.
Keep going. Keep going.
Yeah. So in the state of Utah, for the state of the vote there, Donald Trump received 45% of the vote to Hillary Clinton's 27% to Evan McMullin's 21.54%. My issue with the argument that Evan McMullin, McMullen, not McMullin, was a spoiler was
actually,
because
that kind of works as a nickname since he is a Mormon.
McMormon. The issue is,
I thought you were saying Evan McMullin.
I just stuttered there. So what happened is Trump was the first person since George H.W. Bush to receive a plurality of the vote. And with Evan McMullin, he is conservative. He was a Republican. So let's say Evan McMullin did not run in 2016. Donald Trump would have had around and I'm just estimating, around almost 70% of the vote. It would have been around 67 to 68% of the vote. It would have been very lopsided. In fact, Donald Trump lost only 2 counties in the entire state, and they were by very narrow margins.
Wait, so you're, it almost sounds like that you're admitting that if Evan McMullin did not exist in that race, that a good portion of the votes that went to McMullin would have actually went to Trump if he didn't participate.
Well, the point I'm making is, well, he didn't cause Donald Trump to lose the state of Utah. He did split the vote.
No, he didn't. But I don't think that's I don't think that's the completion of the argument. Or the idea is that they're taking votes in general, votes that could have plausibly gone to them originally, not necessarily that it made them lose. I mean, I at least recall Sean Hannity referring to Evan McMullin as a spoiler in Utah, but yet he did not take Utah nonetheless, and he wasn't concerned whether or not Evan would have actually taken Utah.
Yeah, a Republican could win the presidency without Utah. It's just generally that's usually their strongest state. Usually when people bring up spoiler, it's only because someone lost the general election. Like when Al Gore lost. Yeah, go ahead.
I think that might be a little bit fallacious there, because they only cry spoiler when they lose like a butthurt baby. But when they actually do win, and there was a spoiler that took some of their votes, they don't. I mean, it's natural for them to not care, at least, because they're all like, okay, there was a spoiler there, I won, so okay, whatever. But people do not go shouting spoiler, spoiler, spoiler.
Yeah, and the same is said with the state of Florida. A lot of people argue that Ralph Nader spoiled the election for George. Well, when I say for, I mean in favor, not he spoiled the election to cause someone to lose. So he had 97,488 votes, or in other words, 1.635% of the vote, to Al Gore's 48.837%, to George W. Bush's 48.847%. The difference between Bush and Gore is 537 votes in the state of Florida. Literally everyone on the ballot, bar the write-in candidates, actually could have caused Gore to win the election had they not run. So, like Nader has always said, either we are all spoilers or none of us are spoilers, because he could have still gotten nearly 100,000 votes in Florida had any of these candidates not run. I'd also point out that you look at these
direct quote from Ralph Nader.
Yeah, it was along those lines. And there's various elections.
Either all of us are spoilers or none of it.
Yeah, that's a quote from him. But it's also just a general consensus. You look at various elections where it's like you're assuming that those voters would not have stayed home. Like Donald Trump had insulted Mormons in the state of Utah. He had insulted Mitt Romney, a carpetbagging douchebag, and he had made some insults about Mormonism, and that's really why. It wasn't they voted for Evan McMullin because he was probably just as conservative as Donald Trump.
I mean, I would still beg to think that a lot of Mormons voted for Trump nonetheless.
Yeah. Or they're just so Republican they didn't give a shit.
Yeah, they're in lockstep, lock heels with the Republican Party. You know.
Yeah, even though the Mormons claim that they are not Republican because of their religion, but whatever. But there's various elections I can cite off of the top of my head where it's almost impossible to pin one candidate to blame for the loss of someone, for someone's defeat. The 1992 election is a great example of an alleged spoiler effect with Ross Perot. He had, and I don't want to like misrepresent statistics. Let me go and get it. But every state in any of the candidates was won by pluralities. Only Arkansas and the District of Columbia, which never votes Republican, majorities were made. Other than that, everyone won by pluralities. So yeah, it was a very close national election. So Bill Clinton of the Democratic Party received 43% of the popular vote, to George H.W. Bush's 37%, to Ross Perot's 18%. And statistics have shown that in order for Bush to win a majority of the popular vote, he would have needed 65% of Ross Perot's voting base. To win a majority of the electoral votes to become president of the United States, he would have needed to have won 10 or 11 of the total states Bill Clinton had won in the presidential election. And I think he probably would have either Bill Clinton would have won more states than him, but narrowly, or Bush could have won more states than Clinton, as are cases where someone had lost more states but still won the general election. Yeah, when people bring up the results and the analysis and implications, I mean, it's been shown statistically that Perot had split the vote almost evenly between Bush and Clinton in terms of out of all the votes he got.
So he would have then spoiled it for both of them. I mean, someone could argue that third-party candidates spoil it for both candidates in a way. I mean,
well, they siphon votes almost equally, is what I'm saying in the case of Perot.
Okay, so it wouldn't be just one candidate that they spoil, but it doesn't necessarily say that they're not a spoiler, so therefore spoilers are a myth.
I would argue that, well, you could maybe say it's a myth because you're assuming that if the person didn't exist, that all of those votes, or even a majority, if they didn't run, then a majority or even a plurality of the votes would have gone to the candidate who would have won or lost. Yeah. I have posted links to sources in my spoiler effect video, which was over 20 minutes, talking about this in depth. And it shows that, statistics of how people's attitudes were about the candidates and whatnot.
I mean, this ain't like it's a huge area of contention, which is I don't want to go on too long about it. I mean, I'm kind of indifferent regarding the talking point. I mean, if you want my opinion, I think, to say the least, the term spoiler is in the least bit somebody could just call a slur towards third-party candidates.
So there's
some extent. Sorry.
Yeah. So there's some questions Humane Mind is asking, and I want to kind of quickly answer that. So he says, but had McMullen not even run, Trump would have won the popular vote too, right? Okay, so 700,000 people in total.
There wouldn't have been enough. I mean, it was like it was off by about 2 million.
Yeah, he lost the popular vote by 2 million, almost 3 million votes. McMullen would have shrunk Hillary Clinton's margin of victory a little bit. If you look at the statistics, the raw statistics, you would see that Donald Trump, he would have had 700,000 votes, and assuming all of them would go to him, 700,000 votes would have been added to his total, along with all the other conservative right-wing political parties in the United States. They all gone to Trump. They would have shrunk that by quite a bit. Although I think that if let's say we forced all those other votes into the Democratic or Republican columns, I think you could argue Donald Trump would have narrowly won the popular vote, or even very narrowly lost it. I mean, I understand it's not a huge point of contention. I just think it's fascinating. But I do think, I wouldn't say it's a slur. I'd just say it's rather petty and cheap to just cry spoiler because you lost.
I mean, don't get me wrong. When I was saying in the comment section of that one video, I wasn't trying to argue that, yes, spoilers are real, so therefore we need to vote rah Republican, never vote third party. I mean, as you know, as most people know by now, I wrote in Evan McMullin because he did not arrive on the ballot here in Kansas, but I wrote in Evan McMullin for the general election for the presidency of 2016. So it's not like I'm trying to argue against voting third parties when I say spoilers exist.
Yeah. I also think that it can draw attention to important issues. Like, let's say Dark Khan ran for governor of Kansas and he came in narrowly second. If he found an issue he wanted to make, more aware, like public awareness on an issue, if he wanted to make that public awareness stronger, maybe his candidacy could do something like that. I mean, Governor Dark Khan would be funny as hell. Strike force from the governor's mansion. But yeah. I generally
says sorry. What was you about to say? Was it? It sounds
Yeah.
like he was one to like wrap up the whole spoiler conversation right there.
No, I'm just I'm agreeing with you. It's not a huge point of contention. I just think it's fascinating. So,
All
okay,
right. Red
humane.
Feather says McMullen McDonald's new breakfast sandwich: egg and cheese and mutton.
Oh my god. So
For someone
humane.
to be a spoiler, it means that they impacted the outcome of the election, is what Humane said a little bit
Well,
earlier up.
yeah. Except McMullen's candidacy did not. I would argue Johnson and Steins did not either. I'm confident those people would have stayed home, just like the people of Florida would have had Nader not been in the race. Humane says, I thought Evan McMullen got over 700,000. Yes, he did. It was in the national vote. He got over, like, almost a third of those votes came from the state of Utah. Bernie Sanders actually got 100,000 write-in votes in the country. That's a pretty strong write-in Well, he wasn't even running. It was just people wrote his name in. Dead people and illegal immigrants vote Democratic. I mean, I'm going to need to. I would ask for some concrete evidence on that. Although I'm going to be completely straight up with you, Humane. I would not be shocked.
Okay,
But whatever.
okay, that kind of brings up another subject actually, because during the 8 hour stream, it was like, or no, it might have not been the 8 hour stream. It might have been the Gemini stream. You, cultural boomers, and other people were just basically, I mean, for lack of a better word, circle jerking on voter fraud being a fake thing.
Okay, I don't remember the content. I don't remember what we were saying. I just think people play on that way too much. I would need to, because
Maybe.
it sounds like kind of a, like, sometimes it sounds like they borderline are conspiracy theorists on this one subject. Like, yeah, voter fraud is a thing, and if it of course needs to be counteracted at all times.
I
I'm just
mean,
saying some people act like, oh my god, it's like, I think it's an exaggeration that someone could pull off voter fraud by getting 2 or 3 million fraudulent votes for a presidential election, or a
maybe
huge difference.
maybe I'm putting a little bit too much on you regarding what was said there, but Boomer in particular was saying there's no evidence for voter fraud. But the thing is, there was like a a mayor election in some, I think it was a small town in Illinois, of where somebody literally committed like voter fraud to tip the election in his favor. I mean, it was a narrow win, but still, the amount of votes that he managed to fraudulently get tipped the election in his favor. And so I think there's like a recount done on that story. I mean, I would have to, like, I guess, do a Strike Force editorial on that sometime. Like
Yeah.
maybe if like the subject gets brought up a whole crap ton about voter fraud, I would be all like, I would play a person's soundbite of them saying there is literally no evidence of voter fraud. Maybe I can put
Yeah.
Boomer's soundbite there and
Yeah.
say,
No worries
here's
about
the
that, though.
evidence.
I know an election maybe you could argue a spoiler effect on, because I do research this stuff sometimes. There was a Senate race in New Hampshire in the 70s where the difference between the Democrat and Republican in the raw votes was 2 votes. Literally 2 votes.
Humane Mind says if voter fraud isn't a big deal, then why are Democrats so against voter ID requirements?
I'm not saying it's not a
Heartstruck.
big deal, but I think it is a big deal. I think sometimes people kind of sound like huge conspiracy theorists. Like, there are some people who think Obama lost the popular vote in 2008 or 12.
And why are they letting illegals vote?
Where it's like, okay, a couple million votes.
Hello?
Is why they would let illegals vote, but I don't
S-Man,
think it's.
you can't.
I don't
S-Man,
know.
you kind of.
Hello?
You kind of cut out for a moment there. I can hear you now, but you cut out for a moment there.
Oh. I actually would like to have a stream. Okay, hundreds of thousands to possibly millions due to fraud. I think that there's probably a couple thousand. I'm not entirely sure. I'd have to look into it further, but I just think it's a tad of a stretch to say potentially millions of votes. But I actually, it would be kind of nice to have a stream in the future to talk about types of electoral systems, like ranked choice voting, direct popular vote, electoral college,
Yeah, I heard.
various things like
I overcame you saying on the Aspie Asylum that you were having doubts again about electoral college. Like you were like against it, you were for it, then like a few months ago, and now you're seemingly against it again almost.
questioning it because the talking point is tyranny of the majority. But if you look at recent elections, we're becoming so partisan. It's difficult to get an absolute majority, which is 50 to 51%, depending on if it's a strict two-way race. It's better to have 51% to have
Well,
a
I think the
majority.
I think the reason why people say tyranny of the majority is for the principle of republicanism. Uh, that being little r republicanism, the principle of republicanism, not
The
necessarily
party.
not necessarily the practice of whether or not tyranny of the majority would actually happen or not. Um, the thing with the tyranny of the majority, and the thing is, I wish I was like on a stream with Cult of Ham, because Cult of Ham, he laughed at the idea of tyranny of the majority. He said that sounds like some elitist prick not able to get their way. But here's the way that I heard tyranny of the majority explained to me: is you have five people in a room, say one girl and four dudes. Three of the dudes, or even the full four, vote to rape the woman. Now, this is kind of an exaggerated example, but it kind of gets the point across. Three to four of the dudes vote to rape the woman, and the woman votes against it. Well, hey, her rights just got trampled on, and they got their way because of tyranny of the majority. That is like that's a basic bitch analogy for explaining tyranny of the majority.
Mm-hmm. There's also ranked choice voting, which I'm looking into, and I kind of like it so far. I don't mind it. I'm reading further into it, but for right now, I kind of don't mind it. A direct popular.
I would think that if ranked choice voting were to occur, that it should apply to a state by state basis, say, and not a national scale.
Well, try it out.
Like we have a combination of the electoral college and the ranked choice voting
In Kansas. Well, because here's the thing, right? You know, tyranny of the majority is kind of how it is right now in my state. It's been dominated by Republicans for decades. So if we're going to have the electoral college on a national front, would it make sense to have the electoral college on a county by county basis for statewide elections, like for like governor, secretary of state, or whatever, like whatever's a statewide elected position? I've kind of thought about that, although I think that it would still be lopsided one way or the other.
I mean, I thought, I would, I don't know. When I first heard of it, I thought that there might be some bad repercussions of it, but I don't know what to think of it, honestly. How it would be worse.
Yeah.
But for some reason, there's some itching feeling in my brain that makes me go thinking that there must be like a negative to this. Is there a negative? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I'll have to think about it later. Cult of Ham actually made a type of like a kind of like a mental exercise. He's like, okay, so you could actually lose more than 39 states, and you could lose overwhelmingly. You could lose up to 58% of the popular vote, but still get elected president if you win just the right number of states.
I think he went higher than that, actually. You only need to like win 30% of the vote. You can win. You could lose up to 70% of the popular vote to win. Was I think?
I meant when I said 58. When I said 58, that's the margin of victory, like percentage. Like, oh, I beat this person by more than 58% of the vote. That's the margin. In the popular vote, he said,
my bad.
Yeah, he said you could win up to it could be like 79% to 21%. You could lose up to 39 states. And I even went to 270 to win how it is currently. And I mean, it's kind of fun messing with it to have electoral ties and whatnot.
Right.
But I'm gonna pull it up right now just for kind of the record, because he's like, you could lose overwhelmingly, the number of states, and you could lose the popular vote, but all you got to do is win just the right number of states, and boom, you're president of the United States. So
Right.
I'm going to have a blank map quickly to show what I'm talking about. Realistically, with voting trends, which he admitted he left out voting trends and
Okay.
whatnot.
Well, I think I see what the experiment is. I mean, you don't have to like show the full experiment. I think I understand what he's trying to get at. But the thing is, to me, it's not really a convincing case against republicanism, and that is what I kind of think that the electoral college falls under. It falls under more under republicanism than straight majoritarian democracy. And for him to say that's anti-democratic, I mean, that's kind of the point of it. Voltaire made that point against him as well. I mean, a person only has to win like 29% of the popular vote in order to become president of the United States with the electoral college. Like,
As you can
and
see
then
right here,
you
this
would
is just
have,
an example.
okay, and you would have the, okay, I'm going to like screen or present you right now. And the thing is, that's supposed to be him making the case of how the minority completely stomps the majority. But that doesn't automatically mean that it's impossible for the majority to win. They would just have to be strategically placed across the United States so that in a given state, a portion of the majority that supports one candidate can overwhelm or at least outnumber a portion of the population within a given state that supports the other candidate. I'm trying to
Yeah,
find the right
and
words here to explain this, but yeah.
yeah, and I mean, obviously, looking at this map itself, I don't think like this is the exact what it would look like if an election happened. Like Ham admitted he left out a lot of factors in this, like voting turnout, voting trends, and whatnot. But he's saying in theory it is totally possible. You could almost the entire voting population could say we want this person and whatnot. So I'm like trying to be at least fair and think about this before just blindly supporting the electoral college. But I would argue that I mean I get where he comes from. Like here's the thing, in terms of you know uh, if we went strictly off of just the popular vote, like it could drown out like states like Montana, Utah, uh, Midwestern states where they only have 3 electoral votes. And it's like, well, you guys are more sparsely populated, but at the same time, it's like you guys vote almost the same anyway, like staunchly Republican. And states that are, bigger populations like New York, Pennsylvania, and California vote Democratic. But the same is said for northeastern states where they have far fewer electoral votes. So it's like population size. I would say is kind of irrelevant when you look at the terms of the number of electoral votes allocated, and their voting trends are kind of the same for the Midwest and the West and the Northeast. Is they vote hardcore one-sided, and it's very partisan. It's very,
Right.
I mean, and it's just kind of a fascinating topic.
I mean, I think the electoral college kind of works under the assumption that there is a possible. Okay, I cannot remember the exact term that you made, but of how people were so ideologically a monolith
Partisan.
or
Yeah,
partisan.
I said partisan.
Well, you said something right before that, trying to explain of how people like think alike within given areas of the country.
Yeah,
So
they are
much.
very partisan. They vote like this. They vote they vote straight ticket all the time.
Right. I mean, I think that's what the electoral college is trying to work under the assumption of, is that you will have Texas, you'll have like California thinking as a collective, and therefore their votes would immediately stomp, like say, a rural area that isn't so collectively minded, and so on and so forth. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's why that people bring up California would love the idea for there to not be an electoral college vote, and I think that might be part of the reason as to why there was like a, a closer ratio with of how many electoral college votes are given within an amount of people in Montana. Like um, Adam Conover of Adam Ruins Everything. He mentioned this in his video, which Steven Crowder made a response video to, by the way. I mean, not that I'm trying to say that Steven Crowder is like the end maker regarding the conversation on electoral college, but still, Adam Conover
Yeah.
made the case. He mentioned of how that the weight of the vote of Montanans holds more weight than Californians as an individual because the ratio of electoral college votes to amount of people is closer in Montana than it is to California. So therefore, their ruling in the electoral college per person has more weight to it than in California.
Yeah.
That's me like trying to explain, but kind of struggling to
Yeah.
explain.
Yeah. Yeah, have you read the part of the Constitution where they describe what happens if there's a tie, or I mean, if you haven't, it's fine because basically what happens is, so let's say Governor Darkhan and Governor Hawk tie in the Electoral College, right? So
Right.
what
I mean,
happens is the House, yeah, that, like the 50, they'll have one representative for each state vote, and if you get a majority, then they will have chosen you as president, and the Senate will choose the vice
right.
president.
Yeah,
So they
I mean
all are equal.
that's kind of the strategy that I was hoping would happen with Evan McMullen. I mean, yeah, I did hear about that in the 2016 election in particular. That if nobody has like a majority of the electoral college votes, if nobody strikes 270 or above, then the House of Representatives chooses the president, and so on and so forth. And my hope
Mhm.
was that uh, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump would get so close on the electoral college count, and then Evan McMullen would take Utah, and then hopefully the Republican dominated House would vote Evan McMullen as president, but then the Republican dominated Senate would have probably chose Mike Pence over Mindy Finn, possibly,
Actually,
but still.
yeah, as it turns out, the House will consider the top three candidates for president and the top two candidates for vice president in the Senate. So Minnie Finn actually would have been canceled out. I think that she probably would have become vice president anyway because whoever would have been chosen by the Senate would have resigned probably. I don't think they would have been willing to serve with him. But nonetheless, that's just
Okay,
speculation. But yeah, I
perhaps.
mean, I don't. I mean, it's interesting to see all these types of voting systems. So it's like even popular vote on a statewide level. You know, you got ranked choice voting, and then there's various types of voting where it's like kind of fascinating to kind of see. You know, are there other types of voting we could try and see how well that works? You know, but
Whew.
yeah, that's basically what I had to say. That was actually a really fun conversation, and good thing we had some laughs in here when Dark Khan had the big gay for the old S man here.
Uh,
So
I
while Dark Khan pours bleach in his eyes, um, I don't. Yeah, Lonely Wolf will be a billionaire with his workers. I don't really have a closing statement for this one. I feel like I got all I had to say out here
He'll,
on
he'll
the on
be he'll be a billion
overpopulation.
he'll be a billionaire from selling bleach, and then Owen will hate him for it.
Millionaires and billionaires. Million. I
Lonely Wolf, how could you betray me?
Yeah,
But
and then Lonely Wolf summons Pinochet from the grave.
oh no, Lonely Wolf wouldn't do that. He's too much of a sweetheart to Owen. But there was a few other things that I wanted to ask about. Like I wanted to ask about Ben Shapiro and Ted Cruz to you, but I think we might save those for another time.
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
like Space Force was one of the things I wanted to ask about. Like, are you? I mean, I know some of the backing reasons as to why that you are against Space Force is because of the approach that Trump is taking on it, increasing military spending rather than reallocating military spending to the Space Force. No, he's just increasing military spending for the Space Force, and you don't like that method that he is going about with it. But
yeah,
on the
we can.
Oh, sorry, what?
Well, we could discuss that more nuanced another time. But generally, I'm for cutting military spending, and I didn't like the idea of creating Space Force to begin with. I get the arguments for it, but I just generally think we don't need to create a Space Force. We already have what we need. But go on.
Humane Mind says a Space Force. Are you sure you don't mean Spic Force?
Yes, I am the commander-in-chief of Spic Force, everybody. Humane Mind has outed me. Great.
Man, if only on YouTube and Twitter you could get away with Spic Man Speaks.
Damn right, motherfucker.
Okay, so anyway, so you are completely against the idea of creating a Space Force. It doesn't even matter if a person like approaches it way better than Donald Trump. You're just against the Space Force entirely?
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to have my mind changed. I'm not entirely against changing my mind on the issue. I just think, generally, yeah, I don't approve of the creation of a Space Force. I think that all these actions the Trump administration is taking is going to hurt the economy rather than help it, in all honesty.
I mean, what if, say, for example, there was like rivaling nations across the globe that were working towards getting a space force of their own, a space military of their own?
Isn't that the case already? I thought there was. I thought
Okay,
that was
so I mean, I think I mean I haven't read fully into detail about it, but I've come across articles that go talking about how China is trying to make efforts to create a space force. And my logic for why we need a space force is so that we can beat them to the punch. Like, these are not exactly our allies. In fact, they are damn near enemies. I mean, especially Russia. I mean, constantly in heat with them, I would say. It's not like a full-on war where we are firing guns at each other literally, but I want to have the upper hand against those people. Now, if, say, for example, the UK, the United Kingdom, was coming up with a space force a lot quicker than China or Russia, I think there would be a little bit more of a case to say that we personally don't really need a space force. Hey, let's just rely on the UK for that instead. But as it stands right now, I don't trust China. I don't trust Russia, and so I want to beat them to the punch on that. That is my thought on that.
Yeah, so I just Googled it just for the record. So there is a French Joint Space Command, and I made a point in my video against Space Force. So there's the French Joint Space Command, the Russian Aerospace Forces, the Russian Space Forces, the Royal Air Force, which is from the United Kingdom, and what Donald Trump wants to create, the U.S. Air Force Space Command with the Space Force.
I mean, the question would also be brought up if, like, say, one of our allies had a space force or was developing a space force that was actually stronger than our rivaling nations who are, like, damn near our enemies. I mean, with the French, honestly, I kind of doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unless I could be proven wrong that they are actually stronger than Russia's space force, I mean, then good for them. They can serve escargot in space then. That was not even a good racial joke.
Oh my god.
Well, it wasn't even really racial. It was more ethnic because, you know, I'm white, they're white.
Check the group chat of this hangout. I made a joke in the chat about your show's name. Second one in a row now, everybody. But yeah, I mean, if we're going to have any involvement with the military in outer space, we could just do it with NASA and the Air Force. I don't think we need...
Okay, S-Man?
What?
You sounded like it for a second there that you cut out. I mean,
just saw the chat. Humane was talking about his...
You suddenly stopped, and so I was like, wait, what?
I just saw the chat. So, Red Feather One, she said Humane security clearance revoked, and then Humane said it expired in 2016. Sad because I missed out on several jobs due to that. Oh, its security clearance was revoked on Spic Force apparently. So when it comes to several other people having um
I,
space and
I want to. Sorry, there was a point that I wanted to address. It. You said if we are to create a space force, you would prefer if we relied on the Air Force and NASA.
I
And
wouldn't create a space force, but I'd use those two instead of creating an entirely a sixth branch of the U.S. Armed Forces.
okay, yeah, to use them to groups, Air Force and NASA to create space military capability. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm for that. I just think that in some way we need to find a way
there's
to counteract our opposing nations in space.
there was also an entire treaty signed under President Johnson between quite a few other countries, which I linked in the description of that video. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's something that is still enforced, and I don't even think President Trump knows about it. Where it says, yeah, you can have some presence in space, but there are certain laws and regulations that go with it that the countries have signed on with, and uh, I think that depending on how Trump wants to carry this out, it might violate the law. But also, by the time he could employ this, I think his first term will have expired, or even potentially, assuming he gets a second term, that he might be out of office by the time that gets all done, said and done with. And I'm more of a fiscal hawk, and we should focus on infrastructure anyway. But I think it'll have to be more nuanced another time, as you seem rather tired and you haven't had dinner yet.
Yeah.
You skinny bastard.
Yeah, it's 9 here in Kansas and it's 8 over there and
In Mormon land, yes, you are correct, Darkon.
for a moment I once actually thought mistakenly that you said that you lived in Colorado for a second. Like this was like about a year back or something, like very early in our friendship that I thought you said
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. I've been to Colorado only very shortly, but yeah, it's still in the same time zone as Utah. The closest I've ever been to Kansas was Colorado, but other than that, I'm generally just on the other side of the state.
Human
Um,
Mind says it is a way for more tax money, but also to increase the size of personnel in the military. The size of each force is limited by constitutional law.
That is true. It's
Really?
easier to pass a law for a new force than it would be the chance to limit the. Jesus, let me reread that. It is easier to pass a law for a new force than it would be to chance the limit on the
I think
existing
he
forces.
means change, so that was a typo, Humane.
Oh, okay. I totally fucked up when I was reading that because I'm like,
I mean,
it's probably a typo.
that seems stupid, in my opinion.
Yeah, honestly, there are various things in the laws I would change. Darkcon and Loudmouth know that if it was up to me, you would have to be born on U.S. soil in order to become president. I don't care if it's military based. You'd have to be born in the actual United States rather than just on a military base. Because McCain was born in Panama and Cruz was born in Canada. And yet everyone was bitching that Obama supposedly came from Kenya, for God's sake.
Uh, what about a U.S. territory like Puerto Rico or American Samoa?
I would say it wouldn't matter unless Puerto Rico becomes a state or American Samoa.
Wouldn't matter as in they are allowed to run for president or they are not allowed to run for president.
It wouldn't matter. They would not be allowed to run for president. I don't mind making those two territories as states. I support it, actually. I don't mind if they become states or independent nations. That's up to them. So let's say those two places were made states, then absolutely. I don't know if it would apply retroactively or whatnot, but I wouldn't mind putting that up to a vote. But that would be up to the Puerto Rican and American Samoan people. Change. That's the way it is. It is always easier to add new laws than to change existing laws. Yeah, it was easy to add the 22nd Amendment. Now it's hard to change it to include all offices on this land. That's basically what I had to say. We can discuss this more nuanced and more in depth later. Thanks for having the conversation. There's no hard feelings for the record. Towards Darkcon, I have no hard feelings about it. In all hindsight, it was rather funny reading that really fucked up typo I made, where you're all like, "Read the damn text, S-Man."
Yeah, sorry about that. Hopefully, we can move on from this. And I don't know. I mean, I don't feel as much obligated to make a response video to your upcoming response video now that we
Yeah.
resolved this because I'm not going to push as hard that you are anti-abortion because you have clarified to me.
Yeah,
I will eat crow right now. You are a moderate pro-choicer because you have articulated to me that you don't believe in capping it at 10 weeks. You just believe that's a compromise for yourself and pro-lifers. What you actually believe is 24 weeks is your
yeah.
cap.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been doing a lot this year is I've been rethinking things and trying to be more bipartisan, although there are times where I mean obviously sometimes you just have to say no, this is how it's going to have to be, but generally yeah, I just try to be a little more bipartisan, but at the same time there's things how I want it and then there's things where I'm like I can compromise. Uh but yeah,
And
that's what I had to
I
go
might
ahead.
still make a response video. If there is something that I find is more highly worth responding to than your own position and how to label you on abortion.
Yeah, if you were trying to
But
argue I was a Nazi, then definitely I would demand a retraction. But I mean, I don't consider getting called anti-abortion to be a huge slur. Not even the word "spick." If you put "S Man Speaks" is a spick in the title, I'd probably be like, "Darkcon, this is common knowledge." But yeah, so uh, 25% for the record. But yeah,
you're a
so
mutt spick, is what you are.
yeah, when I fell into a batter full of graham cracker material, yeah, that's kind of what happened. When I step out of that, it made me 25% spick.
I see. This stream is getting pulled down now is because the S word was said so many times.
The forbidden word.
Yeah. To quote good old Edgelord Ham. So anyway, S man, have anything to say in closing?
Not really, except my head hurts a little bit because I just did that.
Anyway, okay,
How
so
about you?
no, I am ready to end this stream right now. So I'm glad that we could resolve this. Resolve that bit of heat there, us man. I'm glad that we could
Yeah.
talk it out instead of type it out. Things would have got lost in translation with typing it out. And I'm glad that we had this conversation as always. I mean, I think we broke new ground on the issue of abortion. We did not retread old ground. So maybe abortion is not quite a dead horse for you and
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think that
so
yeah,
I
I
changed
think
my
it'll
mind on that.
yeah. I think like in like maybe within a year or two I might revisit this topic and kind of being like like or after a while I'll just like think about it again and recover it and see if I change my mind. Uh, just just to let people know. But yeah, thank you for having me on as always, and uh, yeah, it's good talking to you, Darkon.
Yep. But other than that, that's all I have to say. And so I'm your host, the Dark Conservatarian. This is my guest, Spickman Speaks. And join us again on Sunday afternoon, as always, for Strike Force. And tomorrow evening, I might even do a hangout stream, The Dark Cancer. So catch that, everybody. I am the Dark Conservatarian. See y'all later, and God bless you all.